Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Where there are Sasquatch sightings, that's where we're gonna go. With so many chilling encounters just waiting to be retold. So join us here in the spooky woods for the Dukechat show. And we're back with a brand new episode of World Bigfoot Central. And we have a first-time guest with us, somebody that I've known for a while here and is a lifelong resident of Montana, also interested in Bigfoot and big time into roaming around the woods, doing the hunter and fisher and sportsman type thing. And looking forward to having on the show right now my friend Dave. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thanks, Duke.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So,
appreciate it.
Dave is convalescing right now. He got mauled by an angry pack of werewolves or something a few months ago. So he's kind of out of action. He hasn't been able to go out and do anything this summer because he had one of his hands pretty much mangled badly, so hasn't been able to drive or do anything like that. So a big group hug for Dave and send him some healing so that he can be in shape to get out there and risk his life doing Bigfoot research next year.
I have been ready, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know.
Get out.
You keep calling for reports all the time because you can't actually go out at all. So you're like, so what's been happening over there? What's in the next show?
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything new going on, so I can't get out there to do the research myself right now.
Yep. Well, as long as we got you here, let everybody know a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into your Bigfoot encounters that you've had to start off with.
Sure. I was born and raised in Montana here, and I've always been a hunter and fisherman. My dad got me into those whenever I was really young, and that was back in the 60s. And just always loved it. Always loved getting out, hiking, fishing, camping, all that. And the hunting's it's always intrigued me with the different animals and things like that are around. I just love nature.
Well, it sounds to me like your experience is pretty similar to mine because my dad was one of those guys too that was like, I'm not going to have any kids that don't know how to go out and hunt and fish and live under a log for 2 days and that kind of stuff. Yep. So yeah, from the time I was just like itty bitty, I think I was like 4 years old when I got my first rifle, my first 22 that I could go shoot tin cans with and whatnot.
Yeah. I shot my first pistol when I was 3 years old.
There you go. Yeah, I got to shoot him as soon as I could hold him and aim him, but actually owning one, that took until I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, many fond memories of northern Minnesota running around the woods there. Mostly the good memories are from the winter when you're on snowshoes and there aren't any mosquitoes eating you alive, but yeah, it was pretty fun. Yeah,
that's one thing I hate is the bugs.
Uh-huh. Well, there ain't very many of them here. I haven't bothered to put on bug repellent in 5 years. That tells you how many there are here in western Montana.
Yeah.
Pretty nice. So when did you have your first experience then?
Well, the first one that I had actually heard of. I was really young. I was with my parents and a bunch of my relatives. We were up at Sealy Lake, up above Sealy Lake, in a different lake. We were camping out, and I overheard my aunt say to my dad that he's got to keep a close eye on me because the forest people will come and get the kids and grab them and run away with them, and you won't be able to catch them. And that was kind of the first one that kind of got something going in me, like, what is she talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
never thought about it again after that until I think I was out of high school and actually junior high. I did hear of some sightings around the town that I grew up in the mountains over there, and that was back in the 70s, the late 70s.
Can you say what town it was?
Deer Lodge, Montana. And then after that, it was I was out hunting with one of my friends that I was working with. It was him and his wife and myself. And a blizzard came in, and you couldn't see more than about 10, 15 feet. And we had a plan that we were going to set up on set up my friend's wife down on this saddle. We were going to go on the other side of this opening and sweep across and chase anything to her. Well, it was snowing so hard, it wasn't going to work. We couldn't do it that way. So I figured I'd take a walk down onto that saddle just to look, see if I can even see anything, see if there's any tracks, any elk down there. And so my friend's wife, she went down off to the other side to the left, and she was going to circle back up to the saddle and then come walking back up. Well, I went down to the saddle, and it was open on the left side, which would be the south side. The north side was all trees. So I go over right by the tree line, and I walk it for a little ways, 100 yards up the ridge there, and come back down. And I figured, well, it's snowing too hard. I mean, there's almost 1-inch snowflakes, wind's blowing. You can't see more than 10, 15 feet. So I figured, well, I'm just going to head back. So I head back up, and I get up to the truck and brush off, and I ask my friend if he saw anything. He's heard from his wife. He goes, no, not yet. Well, I get in and start warming up. About 10 minutes later, she comes walking up the trail and said that she found my tracks, started following them up, tracking me, and then she found where there was a 16-inch human footprint that got on my trail that followed me up. So that was kind of the first experience that I had actually had at that time. So, and
did you go back and look at the tracks, or did you just take her word for it?
No, I just took her word for it. I was like, yeah, okay. I still wasn't at the point where I really believed. And so it was just kind of, I've seen other things around, and after hearing a lot of the podcasts and from different people and stuff, some of the evidence of things to look for, of with different tracks and stuff like that, then you know what to expect. Keep your eyes open for. And since doing that, I see that there's evidence all over the place. And it's not necessarily up in the real remote areas in the mountains. I'm finding it down lower in places where, people are at quite often.
Mm-hmm. I got somebody who follows my channel that actually is a truck driver over in the East Coast in the Appalachians. And he got the idea through my channel that Bigfoot like to watch us. We're their entertainment. So he started going, maybe I should stop at some of these more out-of-the-way truck stops, really in the sticks, where they're all surrounded by woods and mountains and stuff, instead of some of the regular, more crowded places that I stop at, and check out and see what's there. So that's what he started doing. And every time he'd get there, he'd get out, run to the restroom and whatnot, and then he'd just walk around with his camera around the perimeter and snap pictures of the wood line. And he sent me back about 12 really good Bigfoot pictures. He doesn't want to go on a show. He doesn't want to show his pictures. He doesn't want to talk about it. But hell, there he is, right in the course of doing his work. I'll just stop at this weird out of the way place that nobody wants to stop at for some reason. Let me walk around and take some pictures. And he goes back and looks at him and goes, well, there's one right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty scary. A lot of things that are out there that you can't. I don't know why your eye just doesn't pick up on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Robert up there at Swan Lake Bigfoot has been demonstrating, they could be right next to you and you can't see them. And he's been doing that by basically filming himself with his wraparound sunglasses, and every so often you get one of their reflections in his sunglasses, and they are like right in front of him or right next to him. You can see the reflection clearly, but he can't see him with his naked eye. I got to turn my phone off.
It's pretty fascinating on capabilities that they have.
Well, I just covered a chapter from Ron Moorhead's book, Quantum Bigfoot, on the last show, and we showed some examples of, one was a picture that we had taken up in Coloma about 5 years ago of something just bending the light around it. And when you drew the outline around the distortion field, it looked like a Bigfoot-shaped object with arm reaching out toward camera person. And the only reason, of course, that we think that was a Bigfoot is because, well, there's lots of Bigfoot evidence there. And this very same picture in the background outside the distortion field, you can see a Bigfoot peeking its head around a tree looking at the person with the camera. Well, the person with the cell phone, excuse me, that wasn't a camera, it was a cell phone, that was taking the picture, like didn't realize there was anything there, but within seconds, they started acting like they were zapped, and they had to go sit down on a stump for about 10, 15 minutes to get, clear their head and be able to start walking around again.
Uh-huh.
And then we had the video from, I'm not going to go back and cover all of it, but one that was taken in Northeast Canada about 10 years ago, where there was one clearly visible across this river. And as they're filming it, it just fades out. It doesn't move at all. It just blends in with what's around it. And then a more recent one from Voyager Overland channel up in northern Alberta, where they set up a camera overnight, and they had apparently a cloaked Bigfoot running around in their camp there. So, there's like examples of this on video, pictures, etc. It's not just, like somebody's word for it or anything at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was hiking in the Bridgers over there. I think this was back in 2016 with my granddaughter, and it was in the summertime. We left from where we were at, went up the trailhead, and we just wanted to go hiking up in that area. And me, like a dummy, I didn't carry a firearm with me at that time. Figured I wouldn't need it because there's quite a few people that go into that trailhead. Usually I always carry something. But we hiked up probably 500-600 yards, and I'm going along putting little lifesavers on branches. Every once in a while, I'd take one and put it on a higher branch. I could climb up and put it up there. I'd put them up where they're, jump up and grab it and pull it down, and you let it go. It's going to go up 8 feet, 9 feet in the air.
Yeah,
this isn't something that's a deer is going to come along and get, or an elk.
Right. And he said lifesavers, not lightsabers. So he's not a Jedi that's running around burning the forest down, in case you didn't hear that right.
Lifesaver candies.
Lifesaver.
We went up probably 600 yards from the trailhead itself, and it was starting to get dark. The sun had already gone down over the hill. And my granddaughter, she said, well, can we go just a little bit further? We did this. She did this like 3 or 4 times, and finally get to a point where it's getting pretty dark in the timber. And she goes, I'm getting an eerie feeling. Maybe we better go. So I said, okay, let's go. She was 12 years old at the time. So we turned around, we started heading back, and she goes, let's run. I said, okay, go ahead, and I'll keep up with you. So we ran down the hill a little ways, and we'd stop. And anyways, we get down probably about 400 yards from the trailhead, and it was pretty open. There was ponderosa pine in that area, and there wasn't much for brush. Most of the brush by the creek, but there was grass around the area, and it wasn't real tall, real thick grass. It was just scattered throughout. And all of a sudden, we heard it went from a yell into it sounded like an African lion roar. And I looked over while it was happening over in the direction, and I'm pretty good for picking out where things are coming from, where noises are coming from. And I picked out where it was coming from, and it was all open for a couple 100 yards. So whatever did it, I knew was only within probably 40, 50 feet of me, if that. And I'm looking, and there's nothing there. But as soon as it got done with the roar, I looked at my granddaughter and I said, "See, that's why we need to be out of here. After dark, it's theirs."
Did that make good logical sense to her at that point?
I think it did. I haven't really talked to her too much about it. Hopefully, it got through.
Yeah, after that, it'd be pretty easy to convince. Yeah, I don't want to run into whatever that is. This is a good time to leave. Sure.
Yep. Yeah. It was then as we were heading down, walking down near the creek, the trail across over the creek and stuff. She was in front of me. I wanted to make sure that she stayed protected, and she kept looking back behind me. She goes, "I keep hearing something back there." I said, "Yeah, they're escorting us out." So hopefully that kind of got through to her. It wasn't until probably about 3 weeks later I was up at a place called Animals of Montana, where they have a lion up there. I think they have a tiger up there, just some exotic big cats.
Right.
And that's the closest I've heard is whenever that lion roared to the depth and the lung capacity of what that thing was that roared at me, that yelled at me and roared. But it went from a yell into a roar. So it definitely wasn't a lion, and one of them didn't get loose and come over there because it's the wrong side of the mountain range.
Right, and mountain lions don't sound like that.
No, not at all. Don't have lung capacity. I don't even know if a grizzly would have the lung capacity. It might, but they don't sound that way either. So, I never heard one yell.
Some of these weird vocal recordings you get, and I got a show coming up on vocal recordings where somebody, actually more than one channel, stole the same Sasquatch vocal recordings and tried to claim they recorded it. So, vocal hoaxers busted. But some of those vocal recordings, it doesn't sound like anything else on Earth. They're incredibly loud. They're louder than an elephant, louder than a lion. Makes your rib cage shake.
Yeah.
Really, it's amazing stuff. So then what happened after that? Was that it for the up-to-date Bigfoot stuff?
Well, whenever I was probably I've found a few more tracks around and stuff like that, but not really a whole lot. Not for experience.
I guess
go
ahead.
I was coming down the road one time and I heard a tree fall over, and there was no wind blowing at all. And there was a couple of guys who were on ATVs that were parked about a quarter mile up the road, looking over on the far side of the road. And it's like they were kind of concerned about something. And I really picked up on it until after I went down below, and I was driving down the road really slow, and then all of a sudden that tree got knocked over. I was kind of like, I think I know what's going on now.
Yeah, could be. Something along those lines. Weird sounds that didn't get included in the last episode when I was up at the ghost town with Captain Jack Sparrow, and we were walking down to where there's this big gate. It's gated off and absolutely no access, locked off, can't get through it, metal gate. And it says no access, elk calving area. Well, it's fall, there's no elks calving down there now. So I walked around the gate. He walked around the gate. You, of course, can't drive down there. Nobody can drive down there. It's not, it's locked off. As soon as we got past the gate, there's an embankment, big embankment on our right-hand side that goes up the mountain, all wooded. And he gets over on my right side, and we take about 2 steps, and we heard this kind of, I can't even do it, but a sound like 2 trees squeaking, like they're rubbing together in the wind. And I stop and look at it, and he stops and looks at it. And then keeping in mind, this is Captain Jack Sparrow, turns and looks at me like a little bit worried and goes, "There's no wind." And I said, "Yes, exactly." And we kept walking. As we were coming past the elk gate, and Captain Jack heard an interesting sound like 2 trees rubbing together, but there wasn't enough wind to make any trees rub together. So yeah, here we are on the trail of Bigfoot, high in the mountains, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, with the pirate captain who got lost here due to some sort of sorcery or something.
It's not so bad, I've got rum.
He's got rum. Alright, we're going to see if we can go find some more tracks before we run out of daylight here. As you guys can tell, the sun's trying to go down over there pretty soon. So we'll see what else we can get. Should be able to see this one. You got toes up here. And there's the impact mark. Here's where the heel came down, crushed the ground. And that's not the imprint of a tire, because we're past the gate. No driving allowed down here. And we have what looks like several more of them. There's another imprint right here, where you got what looks like a heel, and then more toe marks up here. So if you want to lay the tape down,
About that, yeah.
and once again, looks to be about the same size as the previous one. So we may have had a couple of old prints from Big Toe going downhill here, which wouldn't surprise me because we found his trackway going up that one little ridge down there a few weeks ago. Hey, we found a track. You can see where it dug into the hillside up there. And big compression on the ground there. So we got another, what, about 15-incher. And that was the same size as the ones we were finding the last time we were down here, so probably from the same individual. Thank you, Captain Jack, for the help holding the instrument of measuring.
When in doubt, pinky out.
Uh-huh.
And then we found 3 22-inch tracks.
Yep. Yeah, there are some big tracks in the mountains, that's for sure.
So, yeah, actually, don't forget you found a track while you were with me up in a little bit past the Giants playground, further out in the middle of nowhere, when we were going up the fortress. We found a track on the way up that thing. Coming up the hill here. Toe, 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 toe. And outline of the foot. There would be the heel. So if that's the big toe up here, then we have a length of about 16 inches. If these are the toes right in here, and I think it's like slippage, then you can cut about 6 off that, so it would be like a, what do we got here? Oh, it's bigger than that. Still 13, 14-inch track. But, yep, this is right up where that I've just been filming, and where there was that structure on the way up. So, is that just a scuff mark on the hill, or is it a track? It kind of looks like a track. Yep. And then I don't know if you could see the Bigfoot on that ridge line on the other side of the valley from us that I was filming, but if you could, you saw one there.
Yep. Yeah, they blend in well, that's for sure. Most people wouldn't pick them out, wouldn't recognize them unless they're moving.
Well, that spot we were at was a dead giveaway, too. As Dave can attest, you drive around this kind of really bad road that if you don't have a Jeep or an ATV, you're not going to be on it. And it winds a ways off into the middle of nowhere, and then there's an area where it goes uphill. And on your left-hand side, there's kind of an open area that conceivably you can camp at if you can get in there. So we pulled up in there, and there's this big rock formation, and right on the edge of it, there's a teepee structure. And I walked over and looked at it and went, well, there's no evidence a human made this. What? It's your classic small Bigfoot teepee structure, right? Where there's this, really obvious, it's been used before, trail going up this thing. So, yeah, that was kind of a dead giveaway. And then when we came back down again, that's when I was filming across the valley, and there was a gigantic one standing on the ridge on the opposite side looking at us.
Yep.
Be nice to at least get up here on top of that saddle.
Long ways away. Can't tell what that is. Probably a tree, I'm sure.
I remember I was out hunting. This has probably been close to 20 years now. And I walk up in the area, and I think I was archery hunting at the time. And I got up on top of a ridge, and it's all thick timber up in that area. There's a few openings around, and I was getting up the top of the ridge, and there was where there was a spring that came out around that area, but there was several big trees that were probably about 9-10 inches in diameter at the base, and there was several of them that went around in a circle, and about 8 feet up, they were snapped off. They were just broke, and all the tops of the trees were pointed into the center of this circle. And I bet you there was probably about 7 or 8 trees, before I even had a cell phone. But it was kind of what the heck happened here? But they were all green pine trees too. There was no beetle kill at all.
What the hell?
Yeah, about 8 feet up, they're just snapped off. It was kind of a weird situation.
Wow. Yeah, geez, I wish you had had a camera to film that. I've heard other people finding things like that, but usually you don't get any video or picture confirmation of it.
Yeah. Yep. But I know the area, and I've had other just kind of makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up experiences in that area. Not necessarily that you'll see anything, but you know that something's watching you. Something.
The creepy feeling you're being watched, yeah.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit.
Yeah. That happens a lot in my favorite research areas. So does that about cover it for Bigfoot experiences?
Yeah, for the most part, the experiences that I've had.
Okay, now on to what everybody's here for, giants. Let's start talking about giants and giant tracks and where the giants are. And here's an interesting thing. The locals that grew up here seem to share this information with each other. That, hey, don't go over to this part of this mountain range. There's giants over there. But they don't tell any of the new people that come to this state.
Now, that's all the hand-me-down stuff, people that know from the previous generation. Stay out of this area.
Right. So that's the meat for this episode. Let's get on to those giant sightings. Now, where did you have the experience with the track?
with the track, I was just outside of Deer Lodge over there. I was going up by Emery Mine area, and it was in the winter. It was January, I believe. Ground's been frozen for quite some time, and there wasn't a whole bunch of snow on the ground. But even if you drove a truck over it, it wouldn't break through, through the ground. You just pack the snow down a little bit.
Right.
And I had my mom take me up there because I was only 12 years old at the time. I couldn't drive. So she took me up, dropped me off, and she was going to come back up later. So I'm up there hiking around, and I'm walking along, and I look down and I see this scuff in the snow, and I'm like, okay, must have been a deer that bedded down here. And I look at it, and there's no real definition. You can't really see anything with it. But it was probably about 32, 36 inches long and probably about 16, 18 inches wide. I was like, huh, okay. So I walked a little bit further, about another 10, 12 feet, and there's another one.
Oh,
And I was
crap.
kind of like, oh, okay, there's a couple of them in here. So I walk a little bit further, I look up, and, there's probably 6, 7, 8 different ones in there, but they're all right in the line. Kind of, almost right straight in line.
Like a tightrope walk, yeah.
Yeah. And I started looking at them, and there was no definition. I was thinking, okay, well, it's just some deer that came in here and bedded down. I was 12 years old.
Right.
And but they were all 32, 36 inches long, 18 inches wide. And it's kind of like, okay, never paid any attention to it. Thought about it later on, later in life, and it's like, those were not deer that were bedded down in that area because there wasn't any tracks, deer tracks.
Just the bedding spot, no tracks between.
Exactly. So there's no deer that had walked through this area that bedded down. So it had to have been some giant tracks that came through that area. And it hadn't been, it snowed probably, it might have been the night before or the night before that, but the snow wasn't on the ground for that long. So it had just come through maybe the night before.
God. So what did you do then?
Well, I was 12 years old. I didn't really do much of anything. Just kept on hunting squirrels and rabbits and stuff. But thought about it later, and it's like, geez, I could have just walked right by something and never even known it was there. Thinking maybe that leg, a leg that's there looks like a tree.
Yeah. 12-year-old boy up in the mountains by himself, not, like you were totally safe. Nothing could have happened.
Yeah.
God.
Young and bulletproof.
You're lucky he probably wasn't around there and he just kept going through the area, or you wouldn't be here telling the story.
Yeah. Well, there wasn't a lot of people up there at that time, that time of the day or that time of the year, but people, it was a main road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But January, yeah, who the hell's going way up there to go hunt bunnies?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I did. I had to get out. It's just part of how I was. If I wasn't fishing or hunting or riding my bike, I had to be doing something, sports or something.
So what, no, I know it's hard to remember at this point. You're 12 years old, but realistically, what do you think the length on those things were?
The length on the footprint itself?
Yeah. Since you got to see multiple ones, they were probably all about the same size.
I'd say, yeah, probably 32, 36 inches.
God, that's monstrously big. I found a lot of big whopper Bigfoot tracks, but even I would have had like a lot of trouble believing that there are tracks that big. Until last spring, not this year, but 23 in May, when we were up at the ghost town, and it had been downpouring rain the night before, and we found a track that had apparently been left there the day before. Something stepped on one side of the road, and the other step came down off the opposite side of the road, apparently, because we couldn't find it. But the toes on the one that we found were sort of missing because heavy rain the night before had washed them out. So you could only guesstimate the actual length, but the part of it that we could see and measure was 31 inches. Here's a video. track. We just had rain last night. And again, you know, if this is a track, we got a colossal monstrous giant up here. I'm going for this is probably where somebody backed up. But again, that, you know, it's deeper there. It's deeper back here and all around it. And, you know, could be just somebody backed up and pulled out when it was wet here. Otherwise, we had a colossal giant up here. And if I get this thing taken over there, it should work. Inches. I'm hoping that's a tire track. Really hoping. The one up here definitely.
Yep.
So yeah, there. And then way after the fact, you bothered to tell me that, oh yeah, there's supposed to be giants in that area. Thanks, bud.
Yep, they're around, and they definitely travel. So you never know where they're going to be or when they're going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, but if you have some kind of an idea on where there's been sightings or where they're known to be or anything. So far we have on our don't go there list, how much of Deer Lodge?
Well, I haven't done a whole lot of research on the west side over there, but I'm sure I could find a lot up in that area too. So, but definitely on the east side, pretty much anywhere around Montana. You get up into the mountains and stuff, they're traveling through.
Yeah.
Not afraid of
Well,
people.
we don't care about that. You got to take your chances anywhere. You might run into a grizzly too. We just mainly are concerned about where do they kind of hang around a lot.
Yeah, there's over in that area. Then I know over near around Drummond, I've heard of them back up in the mountains. Would be kind of northwest of Drummond. My friend's dad, well, it was actually one of my dad's friends and his boy. We went down there to Drummond. We were going to go up hunting. And this was before I even had a rifle, so I was just walking with my dad. But my dad's friend said, "All right, Chuck, you need to watch out for some things that are up in these mountains because they're giants. We have giants up in these mountains here." And my dad, he was just like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And of course, we didn't see anything. But that was kind of a pass me down, you know, from one generation to the next of what to look out for. So I know they're up.
It's a known thing.
Just got to watch out for them whenever you're up in the mountains.
Yep. Yeah, I know there's a report from 3 airmen that were all pilots at Malmstrom Air Force Base, and I believe it was in the latter 70s. And those 3 plus they had 2 kids with them. We were doing a hiking, camping type trip and got rained out, torrential downpour in the middle of the night. And while they're running back to their vehicle, they spotted what, you know, some giant thing 15 feet tall on the edge of the woodline looking at them. So the one guy with not much common sense decided to fire a shot near it to warn it away, which prompted it to charge. So they jumped into the vehicle and they fired it up and spun out as fast as they could. And apparently it chased them part way down the mountain. And the witness said it just looked hideous. It had, you know, red eyes and it was gigantic and it looked like a T-Rex coming toward them. The thing was friggin' 15 feet tall. So yeah, they're mightily terrified now. So Little Belt Mountains might also be off your let's go be touristy there list.
I've heard of one over at the Snowy Mountains too here in Montana.
What was the report on that one?
That one I had read it just a while back, that some people had gone up into the mountains up there, and a person actually ended up getting killed out of that situation. I don't remember if they're horsebacking in or just walking in, but they had an encounter with the giant. Ended up killing one of the guys.
Another one we had was, I suspect, and I couldn't narrow down the location, but they said it was within a half-hour drive of Missoula, and kind of gave vague directions on which direction to go from there. So I would think it would be on the northeast side of the Sapphire Mountains. Apparently, that's not a good place to go. He had a boulder thrown at him by about a 15-foot tall giant.
Yep, they're well, like I said, they're around. It wouldn't take long for them to get from going up through the mountains from one mountain range to the next, and that isn't that
Right.
far from where I grew up at.
Right. And again, that's just south west from the mountain range I was in, where I found the track up there, where there's like mysteriously 4 ghost towns all in this one mountain.
Yeah.
Like nobody wanted to live there or something. I don't know why. So where else have you heard the scuttlebutt of them being at? We've eliminated part of Deer Lodge in the northeast corner of the Sapphire Mountains. And what's that range up there with the ghost towns? What do they call that range?
The ghost towns up by Coloma, up that area.
Yeah, Coloma, Garnett, the other, there's 2 more of them up there too.
Yeah, I'm not sure of all of them that are up there, but yeah, any place.
I don't even know what that mountain range. I don't even know what that mountain range is called. It tells you how much I know.
Well, if you get up into the mountains, you know what you're looking for. You can pretty much find something. You can find evidence. It might be a little bit older. You might be able to find some fresher stuff, but there's always something that if a person's aware, they know what they're looking for, they can find it.
Yeah, I don't seem to have too much trouble finding Bigfoot tracks, and even ones that are on the upper side of scale-wise what people normally find. It's really big Bigfoot running around the state.
Yeah, well, they're not small here in Montana. I know. You're talking, a little one is going to be 10, 12 feet tall.
Yeah.
Bigger than that.
Yeah, that's like a sub-adult. I think if I had to average out all the tracks that I found over the last decade, it'd probably be like 17, 18 inches is the average track.
Mm-hmm.
But, they're like big. I think down south it's more like 15 inches or something for the average. If you average them out make a bell curve out of it, what's the biggest, what's the smallest, how many on each spot, and yeah. And that kind of blew me away because I've done, Bigfoot research in other parts of the country too, and places including where it's really hard to even find a track. And usually when you do find them, they're more like in the, 15, 16 inch range. That's pretty much it. Occasionally you see a bigger one, but up here it's like, geez, the average one is like 18 inches long for bleep.
Yeah. Yeah, and you never know. It might be sometimes that you're walking along and there might be something that's so big that you don't even realize that it's a track in that area. Just kind of a impression, and you don't realize it. It's, it could be even a lot bigger than those.
True enough, because you're not expecting that anything is that big and could leave a track like that, and it wouldn't even register. That happened with Papa Craig over there in the Wallowa Mountains when he found the one track that he assumed was a mud puddle with several elk tracks on one side of it. And he even, was bemusedly looking at it going, oh, that mud puddle with the elk tracks looks like a big track. And he started looking at it closer and went, those aren't elk tracks. Those are toes. What the hell am I looking at? And same thing you described. He walked about 12 feet forward and found another one. And then he went back to the first one he found, went about 12 feet back and found another one back there. Then he got really disturbed and decided that he maybe should go back over to the other side of the river where he was to start with.
Way to cross the river, though.
Yeah, he had guesstimated, he didn't have a tape measure with him, but he guesstimated, somewhere between 30 and 36 inches.
Yeah. Yep.
And according to him, his son was in the same area about 20 years later and found pretty much identical tracks in the same area. Now, he doesn't want to go there either.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Yeah, they're out there. You just kind of have to realize that there's nothing you could do, even if, if they're out there, and you run into them, there's nothing you can do. Carrying a firearm is not going to do it for you. With the Sasquatch, you're not even going to see them if you walk right by them. So it isn't going to do much.
Yeah. Nope. Nope. And with giants, you have to have an anti-tank gun or something to take down something that big anyway. How many hunters are walking around with an anti-tank gun?
Yeah.
Not very many.
Right.
Well, here in Montana, I'm sure there's a few, but not very many.
Oh, around your artillery with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got their hunting rifle on a tripod with wheels on it that they're pushing ahead of them. So what other reports have you heard of any areas around here, especially in western Montana, where you've heard like giant sightings or reports, anything like that?
Well, up
Or
there
it's
by,
just well known to like good areas to avoid?
yeah, well, up there by Libby. The thing is, in Montana, the mountain ranges, you're going to find things that, if they're that big, they're going to travel from one to the next. And a person can go up for many, many years. If they don't know what they're looking for, they could walk right over the evidence and not even realize it. And they may take and wander they may wander from Mexico all the way up into Canada. It probably wouldn't take them that long with that kind of a stride, that big. So they could just wander around and you'd never know. But any of the mountain ranges, you're going to find, any place you have grizzlies, you're going to have things like this around. I mean, we have grizzly bears here in Montana that I've heard of the front pad of the bear, the track itself is as wide as two $1 bills end to end. That's just a grizzly. As far as the giants, yeah, they're around. I don't know if they're going to be nocturnal. I don't know what they do during the day. I have no idea, but you know, it's just things that I've seen, things that I've heard about, and I just know that they're out there. People just have to be aware.
Yeah, most of the sightings I can think of have all been like daytime, except for that one of the airmen that were taken off in the middle of the night because there was a giant thunderstorm. But mostly anybody that sees one, it's usually during the day when they're seeing them, so I don't think they're that nocturnal. I think they just stay kind of out in the middle of nowhere where people don't run into them. One fisherman that got a boulder thrown at him was about 1.5 miles upriver, further upriver than he had ever been. And this one little river that nobody goes up for some reason. And he had, like he said, about a 15-foot one, lobbed a boulder at him. And his description was it looked like a caveman. It even had clothes on, it had boots on, it looked like they had been stitched together out of elk hides. And, you know, so this isn't like a Bigfoot. Definitely this is a giant that he was talking about. But I remember years ago when I was talking to Wes Germer about that, and he had 2 sightings of giants that came to him out of Canada, that both of them were daytime sightings. And same thing, they looked like giant cavemen with, you know, hides stitched together for clothing. One of them was carrying like a stone axe. The other one didn't seem to have anything in its hands. But, you know, they didn't even want to come on the show and talk about it because who the hell would believe them?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not here for people to believe me. I really don't care if they do or not. I just want people to be aware that there are things out there that you're not going to make a difference with a firearm. You're not going to kill one. You're not going to bring it in. Just
yeah. Well, what I mainly worry about isn't the, you know, like random encounters, because, yeah, like randomly you could run into anything. I want to know what area they usually hang around in and avoid that area, because that minimizes the danger right there.
Yeah, but that avoids all the fun then.
What fun? You can have all kinds of fun in every mountain range with a Bigfoot there. You don't need to have giants.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, they got this bad habit of eating humans, or the old ones used to anyway. I don't know what they're doing now, but could be some of those disappearing people are going into the food pot.
Yep. Becoming a turd.
Because, yeah, again, you know, unless you got a flamethrower and grenades or something, I don't know what you're going to do to try and fight one. You can't outrun it.
Not really anything you can do.
No. Unless they're crappy climbers, you could climb down a cliff to get away from one or something. I don't know.
I don't know about that. They'll probably go to the bottom side and just pick you off.
Yeah. I could just hang in the middle of the cliff for a while and flip him off till he throws boulders at you and mashes you.
Knocks you off the cliff like a fly off a wall, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Big
Yeah, the
forward.
notoriously good boulder lobbers.
Yeah.
In legend and everything, too. Which reminds me of the story about Nahanni Valley, where one of their friends had hired a copter pilot to take them up to Nahanni Valley because they were geologists. They wanted to check out the hot springs there. And it cost them $3,000 to fly in there for 15 minutes and then fly back out again. And the copter pilot wouldn't land the copter. He said he'd drop them off and then come back 15 minutes and pick them up again. And he dropped them off and started flying back out of the valley area that they were in. And he didn't even get that far away from them. And the people there started hearing like screams and roars coming from the nearby mountainside, getting closer. And all of a sudden, the copter was coming back down to pick them up again, which they were pretty relieved about. Total elapsed time on the ground, 2 or 3 minutes. And he's just going, get in, get in, get in. And they'll jump back in the copter again, mightily happy to comply with him and happy that he came back and got him. And they said, why'd you come back so soon? We're hearing these weird noises. And he goes, yeah, I saw something. And they go, what? And he goes, never mind. He wouldn't talk to him about it. But he flew him out of there. And there was their $3,000 trip of like 3 or 4 minutes on the ground.
Yeah.
But part of his rules for flying him in was he wouldn't land, and he didn't want to be within 100 feet of the ground. 100 feet of the ground.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Too big of a rock come flying up and knock the chopper out of the air.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this kind of creepy stuff does in fact happen. So let's see, how many mountain ranges did we get now? Is there any other ones that we missed or parts of ones that we should mention?
Well, if you look at the ones that we've mentioned, it's not that far over to the other ones that we haven't mentioned. So you can pretty much guarantee.
Well, again, conceivably they can walk anywhere and they can go there fast. We just want to mention areas that they're known to hang around in. So there's the start of don't go there.
Yeah, those are just the ones that I have had my personal experiences in, and that I've heard of, people saying stay out of this area. But I haven't really been to, down to the other mountain ranges like Tobacco Road further down. I've been in there hunting and found a huge wolf track, but I didn't, that was in the wintertime, hunting season.
Yeah.
But I hadn't been up there much before to look for any evidence or anything else. Don't really need to, I'm good. I don't really need to go out and try to provoke them or try to get evidence or anything like that. I know they're there. And if people want to go out and find them, they may become food themselves.
How about the Absaroka Range? Have you heard anything about that one?
No, I really haven't heard much about that one.
Is just to look at it on a map, and it's sort of like right next to Yellowstone. And gigantic forests on all sides of it with virtually no people in there.
Yeah, well, anything to do with down in Yellowstone area, yeah, there's not only people that come up missing, but there's been some reports of some, strange creatures down in that area too. So,
yeah. The rumor is that Northeast Yellowstone has
one weird experience that I've had. I was out hunting one time, and I was up from my friends, and I was in the trees. Okay, I was a couple miles away from my friends. And it was dark, and I didn't have a flashlight on me. The only light there was just there was snow on the ground, and the trees were not real dense. They're kind of sparse in that area. Lodgepole pine. Right. And I was like, oh, great. I think I head down this direction, but I don't know for sure. And I couldn't really tell where the road was because there's snow on the ground. It covered everything from the previous night. And I'm kind of looking around, and all of a sudden I see a light on my left-hand side here. And I look over, and it looks like one of those old mining lanterns. that have the little cross section that protects the glass. And it came from, it's probably 5 feet off to my left here. I'm like, what the heck? And I look at it, and it kind of moves and takes it. It's like somebody was carrying it, beside them where they're just walking and swinging their arm. Well, I look and I'm thinking, okay, there's nobody on this side of it. Is there somebody on the other side? And the light didn't show anybody on the other side either. And I was like, hey.
What the hell?
I said, hey. And they just kept on going. I was like, ooh, then the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And it was a lantern, and there was nobody carrying it. And I got down probably about 50 yards and then just faded out. And it was still within range of the trees. It didn't go over the hill. I was kind of like, well, that's kind of strange. So I fired a shot up.
That's extremely strange.
Yeah. I just say I stay out of the sticks, out of the woods at night.
Yeah, because I mean, let's face it, the woods and the mountains around here are dangerous enough during the day. You don't need to be walking around in them at night.
Exactly. So I think that's probably the strangest encounter that I've had. I think as far as
I was going to say, what do you even think that was?
I don't know. I really have no idea. That's just what it looked like to me. And I was only 18 years old at the time. I didn't have glasses. It wasn't, my vision was bad. It was just, it appeared and was swinging through the air like somebody was carrying it, and it faded out. Nobody answered me whenever I said hey. It just kept on moving away from me.
Wow.
I have no idea what it was.
Wow. That's weird. That's not even an orb or something. That's like some kind of a specter or something.
Yeah, I don't know. No idea. It's just been strange. It really has. Growing up in Montana, it's just, what to expect anymore. I did. After knowing of the Bigfoot and actually finding out and knowing that they exist now, at first I was like, I didn't even want to go in the mountains again, ever. I mean, it's like, I'm good. I never want to go up there again. These things are there. They're, hideous monsters and stuff. And then I, kept on pursuing, going out and things like that. And it's just like, well, if they ever wanted me, they'd have me. So there's no sense being afraid of them. If they wanted to kill me, they would have done it a long time ago.
Yeah. Yep. That's why I don't buy most of this characterization of them as awful monsters. And, like humans aren't particularly good at knowing the difference between a Bigfoot and any other cryptid. So if there's somebody attacking someone, how do they know for absolute certainty it was a Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, they don't even get a look at it. A lot of these so-called attacks aren't really attacks. People mislabel non-aggressive behavior. Oh, the Bigfoot was holding his arms up. So is that threatening somehow? That's what people do when they surrender. They put their arms up. People just shoot at anything, especially if they don't know what it is. But I have, out of all the gazillion reports I've heard of Bigfoot attacking people and killing people and Bigfoot ate my uncle's Winnebago and all this other garbage, I've only ever been able to track down one person that claims to have been attacked by a Bigfoot that actually had evidence to show that it had happened. And that's one out of how many reports have you heard?
Yeah, quite a few. And the thing is,
some of these missing people reports, that could be the same thing. Cryptids taking them or something. Could be Bigfoot, could be there are other choices that could be taking them. But I mean, as far as that goes, when I have zero evidence of any report of somebody being killed by a Bigfoot, that they were actually killed by a Bigfoot. I mean, not even, like coroner's report, body weirdly mangled. We have no idea what caused it. Occasionally you see something like that.
Yeah. Well, there's the one with Roosevelt that was down there past Darby. down in that area where the trapper, I don't remember, was that back in the 1800s, early 19s?
Yeah.
He had,
Bauman and Jessup, that's on the other side of the Bitterroots from here.
oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, Kelly Shaw has actually been either to or very near the area where it happened.
Yeah, yep. I've seen his video on that.
Yep. So that was his partner was named Jessup. That's the guy that got his neck broken, and
Yep.
Bauman just abandoned everything and left.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably was a good idea. And Jessup wasn't the only casualty. At the beginning of the story, it tells you that they were already cautioned that somebody had disappeared up there a few months before. So that was actually casualty number 2, because a couple years before that, another prospector had come out of the mountains all beat to hell, stumbled into camp, and said that some big hairy monsters had beaten the hell out of him. And he only managed, he made it back to town, but he only lived like overnight, and then he died. And his name was Dick, and they changed the name of the town to honor him to Bloody Dick, which it is not named anymore. They changed the name again back in the 1980s because everybody kept stealing the signs for the town all the time.
Yeah, that sounds.
So yeah, there was actually three within a couple years, all in that one area, and Bauman's partner Jessup was just one of them.
Yeah, I remember reading one. It was up over near, I think it was near Lincoln, that area. There was a miner that went around up on top of a mountain, and he was up there doing some prospecting, and he actually ended up disappearing. Just no trace of him. He was just gone. Don't know whatever happened with that.
Yeah, that's one thing that, there's enough animal attacks in Montana that the people out here are pretty expert at finding whatever's left of you if an animal gets you. So at the point where somebody disappears completely and there's no trace of them, that's peculiar.
Yeah. Yep. No blood, nothing. They're just gone.
Yeah.
No clothing parts. No pieces left behind. Just everything gone.
Mightily suspicious. Like the incident here in the Bitterroot Valley about coming up on almost 10 years ago now, where this one guy was out running. He was a young guy, and he'd go out and trail run for exercise every day pretty much. Disappeared. And then 2 days later, another guy on the other side of the valley disappeared. Well, the first guy, his name was Shelby, and Kelly Shaw actually drove up here and did the investigation and talked to his family. And local law enforcement had released to the newspaper a story that he had been a free climber, and he had left whatever free climbing equipment he had in his vehicle and went and climbed up this one cliff and fallen off and killed himself because they found his mangled remains at the base of the cliff. And the parents completely refuted this idea, saying he didn't do any cliff climbing. He never did any free climbing. He didn't have any such equipment. He would run that route up at the top of the mountain every day. And somehow he either ran off the cliff or something threw him off. Well, then 2 days later, on the opposite side of the valley, George Alex Bauman, then in his early 50s and weighing 185 pounds, is out in Ambrose Creek Saddle cutting firewood to load into his truck and disappears. Nothing is stolen. All of his equipment is sitting there. They can't find him. For 2 weeks, they can't find him. They got copters and everything in there. They got 2 different teams of dogs. They can't find him. There's no blood. There's no evidence of a struggle. Nothing. So then about 2 weeks later, they find his body torn apart and strewn across about 40 feet on a steep wooded hillside a couple miles away from where he had disappeared. Cadaver dogs found him. And keeping in mind, these 2 guys, 2 days apart, were only a few miles away from each other. One was on one side of the valley, the other one was on the other side of the valley. So this could be a mountain giant incident here, where it was going across from one side to the other and just randomly killed whatever humans were around there.
Yeah. You'd think that he would, maybe he didn't have appetite for human at that time.
Yeah. Neither one of them were eaten. They were just, one of them was mashed and thrown down to the bottom of a cliff, or was mashed as a result of falling to the bottom of the cliff. And the other one was literally torn apart. And some picked him up and carried him 2 miles without making a drop of blood on the ground that a dog could trace or follow.
Yeah.
Through really impossible terrain. And
Yep.
for that, let me reference a show that Kelly Shaw did about this years ago when he got the report. Was Bauman killed by Sasquatch at Ambrose Creek Saddle, which I think has like 150,000 views on it, because he actually came to the area and scouted around, did the interview, talked to the family, looked at all the evidence. And when you see the area this guy disappeared in, like, whatever could pick up a 200-pound guy and walk 2 miles with him in this terrain was superhumanly strong.
Yeah.
And why carry him 2 miles and then tear him apart?
Yeah, he was probably alive until that point in time.
Yeah, that's not like typical grizzly bear behavior or anything. Again, any large known predators would have made a mess during the course of attacking him, would have left drag marks or blood marks or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was no scent trail the dogs were willing to follow.
Even a grizzly isn't just going to pick somebody up and, there'd still be drag marks on the ground. It'd be blood. There'd be something. They'd usually tear
some sign of struggle or something. And foul play by humans makes no sense because all of his stuff is still sitting there,
Yep.
Truck, tools, all that, it's just still sitting there. If you're going to mug the guy, why don't you take his money? Why don't you steal his truck? It's all just sitting there. He's gone.
Yep.
So anyway, hopefully that's enough terror for one night. Be careful when you're running around the mountains here in Montana because, giants and, crazy people and who knows what other kind of weird cryptids wandering around that aren't nice and cuddly like Sasquatch. Todd Standing would disagree with me. He got chased out of 2 different areas in Montana. The Sasquatch didn't like him.
Yeah. Yeah, if they don't like you, they'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme over and over and over again. And, sometimes I'll have different team members with me, and when they're around, the Bigfoot just don't even show up. And as soon as they leave, then there's all kinds of activity. Yeah. So it's totally up to them if they want to interact with you or not. And they may like you and not like somebody that you're with, so you get nothing. That kind of stuff just happens. So, but you could take the clues. If it keeps happening with the same people there, then maybe they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I had a friend. We were going to hike into a lake one time, and we started hiking up this hill, and we get not even halfway up this. Well, it was a mountain. Not even halfway up this mountain, where it breaks over. We're going to go into a lake and camp out. And we were both feeling great and everything. And by the time we got halfway up that hill, he was feeling sick. He didn't, he was like, I can't do this. I can't go on any further. I'm not feeling good. He probably got zapped by a Sasquatch, but I was feeling fine still. So it didn't hit me at all.
Could be. I mean, apparently that's what happened with me and Papa Craig when he came up here camping with me, because as soon as we went walking away from camp, and we didn't even get 100 feet away from it, he got zapped apparently, because he just almost went to his knees. He could barely walk back into camp again, had to sit down, finally lay down and try and rest for a few hours to recover from it. And I was just fine. Nothing happened to me. I was 6 feet in front of him. And all of a sudden he's just like, bloop.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yeah, they don't like you, they'll let you know.
Yeah, apparently.
Roll things out and roll out a sleeping bag at night. Just camp out under the stars. And kind of have a feeling something's out there, but, I was protected. So.
Yeah, I got to give Shane credit for balls, because he's been up camping with me a few times here, and he knows they're around. He's found their tracks. He's heard them and stuff. And he just sets up his little throws like a ground pad on the ground, puts his sleeping bag on that, and then sets up a little tarp over it in case it rains or something to keep the rain off him. And before he crawls in, he goes, "Okay, guys, don't tickle my feet or mess with me or anything. Just leave me alone tonight, okay? Thanks." Nothing happened to him.
Yep.
And they are notorious for coming into camp messing with people that are camping with me. So, yeah. including me.
Yeah. But they gotta be entertained somehow.
Well, yeah. I know one time they got mad at us because we quit telling stories and went to bed too early, so they kept throwing pebbles at my tent trying to get me to come back out and tell more stories. And I was like, no, I gotta sleep. We'll tell more stories tomorrow night. There's donuts on the table if you're hungry. Go eat donuts.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that was, yeah, actually that went on for about 20 minutes. And finally I just said something like, knock it off. And then it stopped. And about 2 minutes later, I heard crunch, crunch, crunch of something walking up right next to the tent. And that's when I went, okay, you guys, come on, I got to sleep, blah, blah, blah. Go have some donuts.
Yeah.
So, yep. Sasquatch, not so dangerous. Giants, extremely dangerous. Avoid the giants. Any other things you want to let everybody know before we get going here?
Oh, I'm sure I'd probably have some other experiences. I just can't remember them right now. But there's, just keep your eyes and ears open whenever you're out there. And you get the hair on the back of your neck standing up because, you get the feeling, probably leave that area.
Yep. Follow your gut instinct.
Yep.
That last episode that I did with Captain Jack Sparrow, I was inside of that huge lodge structure. Filming a thing where I was reading about the legend of Boggy Creek, and actually Keith Crabtree called me right before I was going to record it, and I told him to call me in about 10 minutes and interrupt the recording, and we'll put him on. And then my stupid phone turned itself off, so he couldn't call me back or anything. But when I was talking to him, he was literally at Caddo Lake, and he said, I'm leaving early. And I go, well, why? What's going on? He's going, I got that feeling they're watching me and the hair on the back of my neck standing up, so I'm just getting out of here. Like, yeah, discretion the better part of getting hit by a log or something. So good idea.
Yeah.
And he's going to be on shortly. He just found a whole bunch of tracks right next to his house practically. And he's got some other updates to let us know about. And his official retirement announcement won't be running around all the conventions and stuff anymore. So you can look forward to that in the near future, as well as having Ron Moorhead on talking about the Sierra Sounds, Quantum Bigfoot, and other interesting things. Awesome. So with that, thanks so much for being on the show, Dave. Really appreciate it. Give everybody a heads up on some of the extreme dangers of Western Montana. If you live over on the West Coast, it's really super dangerous, and don't move here. But other than that, I think we pretty much covered everything. So thanks for being with us. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to hit like, hit that subscribe button, join the club, hit the all notification bell so you get notified when every show comes out. You won't miss any of them because they're like really awesome. A lot of you didn't see the last one. There's 22-inch tracks in that one with Captain Jack Sparrow finding them. So if you missed it, go back and check it out. But other than that, thanks to everybody for being here. Thanks, Dave, for being here. Love you all, and you know the drill. Make sure that you're kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do not hug the Wookiee.
My fellow Americans, we had a great turnout yesterday, probably the greatest ever. Thank you for your support, and we're going to be making breakfast great again.